Yo, call me the Usi the way I got the pussy. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Games Cage. Today, and only today, we are here to talk about Sonic's style. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because there was a recent Twitter clip going around that I'll show really quickly here, just showcasing just that nice old school look of Sonic that gave him the sauce and everything. And this sparked a debate online. People just saying, man, I wish Sonic had this energy. What happened to the sauce? This is the Sonic I grew up with. This is the style. Where is it, right? And I figured this clip legitimately has inspired me to make this video and actually talk and explain that, right? Why was Sonic so stylistic? What happened to it? Is it coming back and everything? So in order to do that, we gotta go from the beginning and then go all the way to now. And of course, if you guys like this video, please subscribe to your boy and let me know if you want more of this. So let's start off with just talking about video games at the time, right? You had, obviously, games have been available for a long time, right? In the 80s, you had the boon of Nintendo, right? The most family-friendly company. You had the introduction of Mario, Donkey Kong, a lot of these iconic characters that are more on the silly, fun side, right? And obviously, we know Sonic was that Sega wanted a mascot character. In fact, at the time, their mascot character was Alex Kidd. Fun fact, but I think they needed something that was a little more edgier. Not necessarily edgier, but cooler. The idea here was to have a character that could be as iconic and recognizable as Mickey Mouse. And you could see that in some of the early designs, like, you know, it feels the rabbit, how they're trying to make like a funny, bouncy looking creature rather than a more humanoid character like they had it with Alex Kidd, right? But then that is how we got the creation of the Sonic the Hedgehog. In fact, according to Oshima, Sonic's base design at the time was created as a combination between Felix the cat and Mickey Mouse's body. So that's a little fun fact about you. And thus was made Sonic the Hedgehog, a character meant to rival the iconic Mr. Mario at the time as the platforming gun taking over the storm, right? And the idea with Sonic was to make a character that was speed-based. And in fact, the whole aspect of the speed of the game came from Yuji Naka enjoying speed running early levels of Super Mario. Specifically, I think 1-1 or 1-2. He enjoyed that so much that he wanted to make a character that was around that speed and thus created Sonic the Hedgehog. And right away, man, obviously, the 90s carry a certain weight to it too. You got to think about the time period. I mean, the 90s was the aesthetic, right? It was about skateboards and styles and big lights, energy, and just everything was a little more over the top and energetic in the 90s. It was when things are, you know, it's when technology is really starting to be a thing, not necessarily as massive in the 2000s, but you know what I mean. It's when really tech and cool aesthetics were starting to continue to push through, and I think Sonic being created in that time was the biggest blessing for him, and you could see him thriving in the 90s. I mean, look at the Sonic commercials we were getting, just how fun and expressive he was. He's got a little bit of angst to him. You know, you look at some of the early Mario commercials, Mario's just a little more just cutesy and kind of just doing things, whereas like the Sonic commercials just had him kind of dicking around, having a good time, flexing his speed. And this style was not just exemplified in the games. Obviously, that's a massive factor. You know, you're seeing the character go fast, or going through some crazy, wacky, creative lows, but you just have that nice tone at the time with the games industry and the media treating this character like the coolest thing alive, to the point of even the games making that a point. I mean, think about Sonic CD released in the 90s and just how incredibly iconic the Sonic CD intro is, just for showcasing how cool that character is. I mean, it's like the epitome of style. And I think while Mario was still the more, you know, platform heavy character and the more iconic character, and it was still rivaled at the time, no doubt it was Sonic the one that was getting the cool eyes. It was the style of the character. There was an identity and branding of the character being cool as opposed to a character being presentable and funny. You think about the 90s also, we got the Sonic OVA in 1996, and that to this day is one of the coolest things about Sonic. You get so much personality, you get a voice to the characters, you get a sick fight with Metal Sonic. Just everything about Sonic was pushed to be cool, right? From robots and techwear and all this, and even down to Sonic's design, right? Being inspired by, you know, Michael Jackson shoes and part of it, having the cool mix of characteristics of speed. It's such a fucking cool character, man. A lot of platformers at the time emphasized getting all the collectibles to get some more levels or like some small rewards. Sonic got you Supersonic, which isn't this the fucking coolest thing ever? Especially at the time where Dragon Ball was taking over the world. The idea of getting this super form for getting the Chaos 7 Chaos Emeralds is fucking awesome. And the fact that it's lived to this day as still one of the rawest forms in Sonic history and continues to be cool without even needing other iterations until modern times it says a lot about just how fucking saucy and stylish the form is. And that's just on the 2D side, right? You get to the later parts of the 90s, you know, where the era of 3D is beginning, right? And we think about Mario 64. Think about how important Mario 64 is, how iconic that game is and stylistic that game is and aesthetic, right? But Mario is still presented as just kind of a funny little wahoo guy, right? Whereas when you go to play a game like Sonic Adventure at the time, oh my god, are you hit with something that is meant to make you feel cool emotions. You are getting characters with different themes in them. You are getting an open map with different characters in there. You are getting to play as the whole different cast of Sonic characters. You are getting a story. You're getting cool moments. It's the continued push to have Sonic be a stylistic and fun character, as opposed to a character that with Mario that at the time is still meant to fit in, meant to be like the family-friendly character. And Sonic was family-friendly, but there's something about playing Sonic that makes you feel cool. And I think that's the feeling they want to exhibit, taking the character into a 3D environment for the first time. And you can tell they just wanted the cool factor. I mean, you got boards in the game, you got treasure hunting with Knuckles, you got some cool characters in there. You even give the villain himself, Mr. Dr. Eggman, his own full arc between Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. And don't even get me started on Sonic Adventure 2. If you want to talk about, to this day, what I would say is probably one of the coolest games in video games, I think it's still Sonic Adventure 2. I cannot name you many more games that fit that category. Obviously, you know, there's your Devil May Cry's, your Hi-Fi Rushes. There's a lot of examples probably of cool games I could talk about in Tony Hawk, but Sonic Adventure 2, everything about that game is style, right? From the music to the introduction of Shadow to Team Hero, Team Dark, City Escape, Final Rush, you know, all the Speed Highway, everything about Sonic Adventure 2 is fucking cool, right? The music is cool, the characters are cool, the story is, you know, the characters are feel old. It's the epitome of style and just interest. It's a team that at the time wanted to make the coolest thing ever, and they fucking did it. And to this day, there are very few things in the games industry, I'm telling you, that are cooler than it. You're getting stuff like grind mills, craziest music, and it's still just unbelievable. And when you think at the time, maybe what you would compare Sonic Adventure 2 to something like a Mario Sunshine. Again, Mario Sunshine kind of presents its little story in the beginning. It's cute, and the game is still fun, but it is nowhere near the style and fucking sickness that brings you with something like Sonic Adventure 2. And a massive part of Sonic in the early 2000s that really brought the style and cool factor of this character is Sonic X. I mean, it is undeniable, right? We obviously had Saddam at the time and Sonic the Hedgehog, the original cartoons, which I think also did exemplify the character a lot and show why people should care about him as a character. But I really do think Sonic X is the reason why Sonic is so beloved today for a lot of people. Debuting on 4Kids and kind of taking over the world from the intro to the style and everything. I really think Sonic here exemplifies why he is the coolest person. In this show, when you go back to Sonic X, there's a lot of flaws with it. You know, a lot of animation issues, a lot of pacing issues, a lot of filler episodes. But the one thing that always stuck out was Sonic was presented to always be sort of the magnum opus. He was a character that would be chilling out all day, and he would be sort of the last resort a lot of times to saving the day, because he knew he was going to. Whenever Sonic showed up, you knew it was fucking done, which is why a lot of the show doesn't have Sonic early on, right? Because he's the character that when he pulls up, the damage is done. And I think from his smirk to how he treats his friends to how everybody loves him to how cool he's presented, that was such a massive factor of why we love him to this day. I think Sonic X's portrayal of Sonic is what people look back to. You know, you have Jason Griffith bringing life to the character, starting with a bit of a nerdy voice, then getting a little more deeper, but you're getting a character that's cocky, that's cool, that's fun, that's awesome, and you're getting so many moments with his friends too, right? You think of Amy and Tails, and you think of Knuckles and Shadow. All these characters is getting fleshed out, and they're all cool characters, man. You know, the only really cutesy character in there you get is Cream, right? And obviously the human characters, but really the epitome of Sonic's personality came from the Sonic X era for sure. I mean, as we continue into the 2000s, this just continues, right? Another massive factor is something like Sonic Riders. Sonic Riders is the epitome of style, right? Whereas Mario Kart was taking over the world and was one of the biggest kart races in the world. I love that Sega at the time, and I wish they had kept going with this disappoints me so much. Sega at the time was still hellbound on having Sonic be, hey, We don't want him to be Mario. We want him to still be cool. And the idea of opting out of being a kart racer and being a hoverboard game was fucking awesome. And think about the 90s and early 2000s. Hoverboards were the shit. That was for some reason just the coolest idea of something to have. If you even look back at something like Back to the Future, right? Hoverboard gaming is so cool. You're having a game where you're doing tricks, right? Which even Mario Kart didn't even have the time, and they introduced later. Sonic Riders has tricks. It has the character wearing extreme gear. That alone is crazy. You got a whole cast of characters with the coolest designs. You got a cool story. You got cool rivals. And like Sonic Riders at the time is just, I feel, is a massive factor of the continued style and sauce that Sonic had in the 2000s. It was such a big deal for a lot of people. I'm telling you, man, there was nothing cooler than that game's art style. Look at the game's intro, man. Look at the game's intro. It's still to this day what people yearn for. I mean, there's a lot of mods for Sonic Riders because it's so fucking cool, right? And from Sonic Riders to Zero Gravity, and even though Free Riders was ass, I still way appreciate that more than what we got later on. Even on the handheld side of things for Sonic the Hedgehog, you think about the Sonic Advance games, which to this day, those sprites are some of the best sprites, not only on GBA, but I think ever. I mean, think about how many Flash animations or Flash games you have seen or played or experienced because of the sprites that came from Sonic Battle and Sonic Advance. These alone, the exterior factors from the games themselves, experience and make you feel why that style is so cool. But even when you play those games, they just have an energy to them, right? Whereas on the GBA, you were playing the port of Mario World, I guess. You didn't really get an original 2D Mario on GBA, but you did get 3 original Sonic Advance games. Continuing on to the DS era in the 2000s with Sonic Rush. And oh my god, guys, do I even, like, you guys know. I mean, I don't even have to tell you Sonic Rush's style. I mean, look, you got Blaze the Cat in there. You got Sonic. You're getting music from Hideki, which is so over the top and stylistic. You're getting fast-paced platforming. You're getting Sonic doing tricks. It is no longer classic Sonic that's at the helm of anything. It is modern Sonic through and through. And in the 2000s era, right, Sonic was just getting games left and right. Obviously, it ends up being for better or for worse as we're going to go along here. But Sonic Rush, even a game to this day like Shadow the Hedgehog, which was in 2005, 2006, I believe. Actually, 2005. Is such a funny thing to exist because it was just continuing the idea that Sonic has to be cool. And even though Shadow, I think, takes it a little bit too far, isn't it fucking cool? Isn't Shadow the coolest thing? Isn't this world just the coolest? They just want to make Sonic dope and have the sauce. And where things start to change is 2006 and onwards. I think Sonic 06 was a big attempt at making Sonic more mature and cool, right? You can tell by the designs, even Sonic's quills being longer, the energy from stuff like the box art to even renaming it just Sonic the Hedgehog, aiming it to be a reboot and having it be more mature in tone. I'm not going to get into everything about Sonic 06. You already know the story, but you can tell from playing that game, it is still something that aimed to be still mature and still cool as shit. I mean, the idea of playing as Sonic, Silver, and Shadow as the main 3 hedgehogs for the campaign instead of any other character was fucking dope. Like, you know, regardless of how you think it is such a cool idea. And they kept that as they kept going, right? You have a game like Sonic Unleashed where you only get to play as Sonic. It's a game where the boost formula was so fun and unique, right? And you're thinking about that era, you know, PS3. If you were to compare with Nintendo, you're getting games like Galaxy at the time, which Galaxy is unbelievable, undeniably beautiful, one of the best games ever made, right? But you think about Sonic, something like Sonic Unleashed, and it is just one of the coolest things. The daytime stage levels are so dope. You got the Werehog that's continuing sort of the angst from Shadow the Hedgehog in some ways, right? And you're getting an over-the-top game leading into Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic and the Black Knight, which were games that maybe aren't the best, but are still some of the best representations of Sonic as a character to this day. I'm talking about some snarky attitude. I'm talking about the beautiful art style. Sonic with some of the best lines he's ever had in the series. I mean, listen to some of this shit.
Every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
It just felt like from the 90s up to, you know, the early 2005 to 2008, Sonic was trying to just continue to be the coolest character around. But there is the big moment, and I believe this big moment, and you're all gonna know it right away, is Sonic Colors. Now, I love Sonic Colors, one of my favorite Sonic games to this day, but this game, you got to keep in mind, was meant to be a sort of younger entry. In fact, the team at the time said that they were aiming for a younger age group. Now, I wonder if this was just because at the time, platformers weren't doing as well. You know, it was the era of the PS3 and Xbox 360 where shooters are taking over, but at the same time, the Wii was dominating the world, right? Wii was over the moon in the world, right? And I think they had taken their attempts with their more serious tones with Black Knight, Secret Rings, and Unleashed on the Wii. But I think they wanted something that maybe a younger audience could just get into and play without dealing with anything, and that was Sonic Colors, right? And you can tell that the style is completely different because, one, we got a new voice actor when it comes to Roger Craig Smith, and not just that, but we got a new writer, and that is Ken Pontek, who wrote a bunch of cartoons and things that people weren't necessarily biggest fans of. I know they worked on Pac-Man Ghostly Adventures. They worked on Happy Tree Friends of all things. Now, I know that these guys have prefaced and said that, look, we didn't have that much leeway with Sonic Team. Sonic Team was very strict about how to do stuff, but I still question the idea of why were these guys in charge, because when you think of something like Sonic Colors, I adored that game with my life. It's not really that dope in terms of Sonic style. Sonic just kind of makes some quick, snaps. The level designs are cool. I still think it's presented in a cool way with the Starlight Carnival, stuff like the food areas, the roller coasters. I still think in aesthetic and style, I think Sonic is still cool, but you're starting to see the cracks. You're starting to see Sonic go back to the kid friendliness, which Sonic has always been, kid friendly, but he felt more shonen, right? I think shonen has a different tone to it than kid friendly, I think. And I think you all know what I mean, right? Things something like Dragon Ball. People grow up with Dragon Ball, love Dragon Ball, right? And a lot of kids like it, but it's meant for teens in a lot of ways. When you're a kid watching it, you feel like you're cool as shit. Then when you're a teenager, you're like, this is made for me. You can even see this going into a game right after Colors, being Sonic Generations, where again, the story just takes a complete backseat. The characters aren't as cool, and you get also the reintroduction of classic Sonic in the fold. Instead of 2D Sonic continuing to thrive with modern Sonic, they decided to bring back the idea of classic Sonic for this, and he was sort of rebranded as this little cutesy guy, whereas mainline modern Sonic was going to be the cool, which I think is also a detriment and a cause of what happened to the style and sauce. And this game suffers the same issue that Sonic Colors has, right? Where level design wise, gameplay wise, fire, you're still getting Sonic style, and I think the boost formula in general is a very good showcase of Sonic being cool, right? Because you're just feeling this insane rush of clearing a level in these crazy speeds, and you're taking different passages, and I think the level design is so fucking dope, right? But the story just takes a backseat, and the characters no longer feel as cool. They're kind of just making jokes in between sections, and not much is going on in the story. And after that is when I truly believe things went for the worse, and to that I blame not only Sega but the Wii U, right? At the time, we got the announcement that Sonic, Sega, and Nintendo were getting into a partnership to make 3 exclusive Sonic games for the Wii U. Those games ended up being Sonic Lost World, Mario & Sonic at the Olympics, and Sonic Boom. Let's talk about this. So Sonic Lost World, right, being the next big 3D Sonic game after Generations. Okay, what a shift. We went from the boost formula to more slower paced, galaxy-like meticulous platforming where I have to suddenly hold to run in it, which, okay, in theory, I get it. You're trying to make a Nintendo-like a Sonic game that's trying to fit that aesthetic and style. But again, this game is when I feel like everything about the style is gone. Like, from the level design just being back-ended to just, here's sand, ice, grass, water. Like, you are getting back to the bare bones of almost Mario-like world design, and then you are just getting a Sonic that isn't emphasized in style at all. The parkour system has Sonic style, but it's so de-emphasized and not fun to do in the game that it never feels satisfying. And when you think about the story, I think Lost World's story is just probably the most offensive to this day. I mean, that just feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, and that's what felt like what was going on with Sonic stylistically. Is he started to feel like a Saturday morning cartoon, and nothing exemplifies this more than the fact that they literally tried to rebrand the Sonic series as a Saturday morning cartoon, and that is Sonic Boom. The Sonic Boom initiative announced as a big rebranding for Sonic in the West, aimed at a much younger audience to make Sonic Boom games, Sonic Boom licensing, Sonic Boom everything, right? To the point that it wasn't even Sonic Team that made Sonic Boom. It was a developer called like Red Button or something, and obviously we all know how that game turned out. And then we have the show Sonic Boom, which, all right, I know a lot of people think that show is great. People love Sonic Boom. They think it's funny, and I think it's funny too. But there's a big reason I don't like it, and a lot of people don't like it. It's because you could replace all the characters in that show with anybody, and it would just be like a little Saturday morning cartoon. The emphasis of Sonic is so unwell in that show, right? You're getting a Sonic that feels kind of like a tired dad instead of a cool guy. You're getting a cast that's just kind of silly and not doing anything. You're getting an Eggman that's become ultra cartoony, and this is just the continued downward spiral where everything about this series started to feel like this was a kid's franchise. And like I said, Sonic obviously is meant for everybody, all ages, right? But I feel like there's a difference for when a series is trying to aim for kids versus being appealing to everybody. And I truly believe that's why the 2010s suffer so much. It's because Sonic's cool energy was just gone. He was just the games existed, they were fun, but there was nothing stylistic and cool about them to carry the times. And when 2017 rolled around, we had a bit of a mental disconnect, right? Where you had Sonic Mania that brought back what people loved about Sonic's style, right? You have the Sonic Mania opening animation, which people adore, right? You got an incredible game that people love and has the sauce and stuff like Studiopolis, Mirage Saloon, Plant Garden, whatever. Like, you're getting some cool style. And then you get Sonic Forces. And Sonic Forces, here's the best way to describe that game. It feels like when Fairly Odd Parents is trying to make a 1-hour special of a serious story, right? That's what Sonic Forces is you are taking the idea of something really cool, like a war of Eggman taking over the world, but there's no stakes to it. It feels, again, like a 2-part Saturday morning cartoon where the world is ending, but everybody can solve it just by figuring out what the bad guy does. There's no real stakes. There's no cool emphasis on characters. It is just a plot point to be a plot point. It's the equivalent of SpongeBob, like, you know, a SpongeBob universe being attacked by something. It really just felt like it meant nothing, and I think that was the breaking point for a lot of people. We had at that point stories like Colors, we had stories from Lost World, we had stories from Boom, where it felt like, where is the cool factor of this character? And I feel like Sonic Mania emphasized that, like, hey man, this guy can be cool as shit. Where is that? And I think that's where the big break between 2017 to 2020 really took a toll on people, because we practically had nothing Sonic related. At most, we had Team Sonic Racing, which I haven't even gone into that. The truly most painful thing that happened, I think, in the 2010s to me is the removal of Sonic Riders, right? Sonic Riders had 3 games in it, and after Sonic Free Riders flopped on the Kinect, which is so unfair because it was on the Kinect, they decided to opt and go for kart racers. Now, don't get me wrong, the kart racers are good. I liked Sonic All-Stars Racing, All-Stars Racing Transformed. I still think Racing All-Stars Transformed is still a good way to show Sonic's style. You know, you're getting these sky sections, these water sections, the CG in it is cool, the presentation is cool, but like, where's Riders, man? Especially when you think of the last game in this series, 2018, 2019, with Team Sonic Race. It's just like, you're just making a kart racer to just fit the box of having a kart racer. Where was the fucking style? I even feel like a game like Sonic All-Stars Transformed was trying to be stylistic in the kart racer space, but Team Sonic Racing feels like it regresses, and I want Sonic Riders back. It makes me just want the thing that was like the other thing, but was cooler. But that's when we get to modern day, right? We're talking about the 2020s to now, where I really do believe Sonic is back on track with the style, starting with Sonic Movie. Now, I know a lot of people talk about Sonic Movie. It's a bit of a 50-50, right? You're getting a Sonic that's a little younger, but you are getting a Sonic that's cool. From Sonic Movie 1 and 2, these movies are cool. The cool fights with Knuckles, how Knuckles is written well again, how you're getting a really crazy Eggman, how you're getting cool characters, you're getting Super Sonic. Like, these movies are trying to do cool shit with this character, despite them being obviously family friendly. I feel like it's a middle. I hope the third movie goes crazy. We're gonna have Shadow the Hedgehog in it, but I will say movie 1 and 2 are a good example of how to push things in the right direction for Sonic's style. And obviously, last but foremost, and of course the GOAT, is Sonic Frontiers, right? This is the return, right? You're getting the writer of IDW with Ian Flynn, and IDW Comics at the time were sort of what people wanted. A lot of people were saying, damn, IDW is so dope. I hope we get a Sonic game with this. And we got Ian Flynn on board for Sonic Frontiers to write a story that people actually gave a shit about. Now, obviously, this game feels in a lot of ways, story-wise, a game that tries to rectify the past. It is sort of telling you what's canon, what isn't. You're getting back in the fold with these characters, but come on, this game has fucking style to it. From the way it was revealed, to its presentation, to its cyberspace aesthetic, to the supersonic fights being the coolest thing ever, to Kellen Quinn vocals. Like, this is what people love about Sonic, and these are the things that are going to stand out with people for the rest of their lives, really. And in the same way Sonic Adventure is how someone was introduced to Sonic, I really feel like Sonic Frontiers is that for a lot of people, and it's going to stick with people for a long time. And I think we can make Sonic even cooler, push him even farther, but I truly do believe Sonic Frontiers is where we are headed to and where we're at. And I feel like they're just taking Sonic more seriously and taking care of him more, right? Even for stuff like the Knuckles prologue that happened, even with something like Sonic Shadow Generations that's coming up. Like, we are in a time where Sonic Sauce is finally returning. They're not afraid to use the side characters anymore, right? We don't have, you know, the baby writers on board. We are doing our best to make Sonic dope and have people care about Sonic as a franchise as a whole. And obviously with Sonic Superstars, that shows that they're still trying to keep classic Sonic as the more cutesy side, which I think that's fine if they do that, as long as modern Sonic stays cool in the fold. Overall, I mean, look, we all know Sonic. He is one of the most important characters to all of us, and I think there's a reason we get a lot of heated debates online about his design, his quill length, his smile, his smirk, everything, and it's because he is such a cool character in so many of his iterations, and how he looks and how he's designed and how he is as a character, that people talk about it, because he is so inherently cool. That's the thing you can never take away from Sonic, is no matter what, he is cool as shit, right? And even when he's presented in a younger style, everything, like, his design is cool, the speed aspect is cool, and he is meant to be saucy. He's supposed to have style, right? And where I feel like that was exemplified the most in the 2000s, I feel like the 2010s lost that. We're starting to get that back, and that gets me excited, and that makes me happy. So guys, let me know, what is the coolest thing to Sonic to you? What is the most cool factor for the character for you? What are you most interested in? What are you most excited for the future of the coolness of Sonic? And of course, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.